Hello everybody, welcome to the usual Friday live session. My name's David Jones. We'll make a start, just make sure everything's working here. It's been an interesting week. If you haven't been on these before, the way it works is we'll take a look at some of the major events for next week. There's a lot happening next week, so there's a lot on the economic calendar next week. Then we'll jump on the charts, look at the major markets, stock market indices, a bit of currencies, energies, Bitcoin, anything else that's interesting, gold and silver, see what's going on, see where the opportunities might be, and then if there's any stuff you want looking at, if you put it in the chat, we'll take a look at it. Stock market's still under pressure. This is the Nasdaq. This is where we were on the Nasdaq yesterday, traded to its lowest level since the 26th of May. So what's that? 5-month low on the Nasdaq yesterday. S&P looked like that. Lowest levels again since the end of May. So stock market's still very much under pressure. You know, after good trends in the first 6-7 months of the year, definite turnaround since the summer. So we'll take a look at those in a bit more detail. Like I say, if there's any markets you want looking at, if you could put that in the chat, that'd be good. And as Richard reminds us in the chat, clocks go back on Sunday in Europe and the UK. So it always gets confusing, that bit, doesn't it? So only a 4-hour difference between London and New York. So US markets open at, what's that going to be, 1:30 UK time rather than 2:30 for a week or so, whatever it is. So yeah, that happens next week. Always confuses me. Right, let's go through the doodah. What are we going through? The risk warning. Let's do that first of all. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Okay, so this is next week, busy week. So Tuesday, Japanese interest rate decision, perhaps not major, but that comes out Tuesday. European inflation later on in the day. Inflation still very much a hot topic for markets. Is it under control? Are rates going to have another little trip upwards? Who knows? The European Central Bank didn't raise rates. Was it yesterday? Or was it Wednesday? Wednesday or Thursday? I don't know. They didn't raise rates this week anyway. So EU inflation next week. Wednesday, one of the bigger announcements in a busy week. Wednesday evening, my time, UK time. US interest rate decision. So let's see what the Americans think, what the Fed says, all the usual. Thursday, Bank of England interest rate decision. Thursday lunchtime, UK time. And as if that wasn't enough, on Friday we've got the non-farm payrolls. So it's a new month, of course, next week, or partway through next week. And we've got the US unemployment numbers on Friday. So I should be here, I think, next Friday after those. So we'll see how all of that looks. So the big one, Wednesday, US interest rate, Friday, non-farm payrolls, but plenty going on in between there. So we'll see how that looks. At this point, I'd normally whiz through some of the stuff I do. I'm going to whiz all the way through it. So I do a trading course. You can find out more about it and the performance and all of that on the website. I run a WhatsApp group that used to be part of the course. You can sign up for that if you want to. You've got to pay for it. It's daily updates for me, what's going on in markets, any questions, all that sort of stuff. I think there's about 50 odd people in that. Seems to work quite well. If you want to sign up and try that, you can use the code YouTube, get 20% off the first month. Go to the website to find out more. That's a sample of what the WhatsApp group thing looks like. But what I want to talk about today, I do a newsletter. I do a newsletter that I never send out. I'm going to have to try and send it out this weekend because I haven't sent anything out for about 3 weeks, I think. So I am going to try and make some time tomorrow and send the newsletter out. If you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, you can put your email in there and you will go on the newsletter list whenever that gets sent out next time. So it's all on the website, okay, all the stuff, all the trading courses, all the WhatsApp group, all of that. But what I want to talk about is this webinar that I'm running in 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks yesterday. So a week next Thursday evening, UK time. I ran one about 3 weeks ago, and I emailed everyone on the email list, and I said, you can come to this webinar if you tell me what is your biggest challenge with trading. And I have to say, I do a lot of these things. I don't think I've enjoyed doing a webinar as much in years as that one, because there were some fantastic answers. I had about 70, 75 responses to that. Ran the webinar. If you haven't seen that, you can send me an email and I'll send you the recording. Anyway, I'm doing one again. So they are different to these YouTube live streams. The YouTube live streams are always fun. We rattle through a whole bunch of markets. But I'm doing this invitation-only webinar. It's free of charge. It's going to be Thursday, 9th of November, 7 p.m. GMT. The working title at the moment, if 70% of people lose, what do I need to do differently? There you go. Nice and simple and to the point. So that's the webinar. It'll run, the last one ran for about an hour and 15 minutes. This one will run for about the same, I guess, about an hour or so. So it's a week on Thursday, run by me. I'm going to start putting it together next week. So we'll look at obviously why people lose, what people's challenges are. Because I think it's really interesting that people still lose in trading, and they will do. In 50 years' time, when we're all trading using some AI chip in our head, 70% of people will still be losing. In the same way 50 years ago, 70% of people were losing. It's never going to change. And maybe even more will be losing. So we'll look at why people lose and what can we do differently. There are some simple steps we can do that aren't going to guarantee we're going to be profitable, but can help us perhaps go down a different path to most of the people who try trading and don't do very well. So I'm doing this. I've started working with a broker. I haven't talked about this before. So I've got a partnership with a broker. I've been thinking about doing this for a while. And what I wanted to do was for clients who go to the broker via me, do lots of events like this. I think in this day and age, there are loads of brokers out there. There's only one terrible broker I can think of. I'm not going to name them on here. I used to trade with them about 5 years ago. They're an absolute nightmare. But most brokers are okay. It's all right. As long as they're regulated and you get executed and blah, 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 who cares? But I thought, what can I do to work with a broker to add an extra level of service? Stuff like this, because I do actually know what I'm talking about. So that's the deal. So it's a week on Thursday. All you need to do, in the first instance, drop me an email to get an invitation. All right, so my email is dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. The link is in the description to this video. And that's it. One of the conditions, just to pre-warn you, you've got to open an account in this broker. You don't need to put £500,000 in, but you've got to open an account with the broker. If you open an account, then you're one of my clients for the broker, and you come to the webinar. Easy as that. All right? Doesn't cost you anything, but to get the ball rolling, if you want to come along, drop me an email. If you haven't seen the recording of the other webinar from 3 weeks ago, say in the email you want a link to that, and I'll send you that. And I think that's maybe the best thing I've done in many years. So that's well worth it. That is. There we go. The broker who I would never trade with again is no one I've worked with, by the way. So it was an options broker, and they were absolutely dreadful. I remember they went down for like an hour over the Fed. Was it the Fed minutes or something? And I had loads of trades on. Could not get through. Could not trade online, could not get through on the phone, could not get through to their help. I left them a very irate Trustpilot review. So that's the only broker who's a really bad broker, and you probably won't know them because it's a bit specialist, because options. There you go. Everyone else is fine, I'm sure. So if you want to come to this webinar, drop me an email, just do it, and I'll put you on a list and make sure you're there for a week next Thursday. I think it should be good. Right, that's it. Any other stuff, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, and have a look at that. Right, let's take a look at these markets then. What's going on? What's going on in the world? Stock markets are still under pressure. S&P 500, there's the S&P. If I'd have gone back here, I would have thought, so if I was looking at the markets, and I'm sure I would have said this a couple of weeks ago, I thought we would have had a bounce, a half decent bounce off there. It faffed around with the trend line, but the market did recover. But look at what the market has done since, and there's not much confidence in these stock markets at the moment. We're back to, what did I say, a 5-month low, didn't I? So with 5 month lows, still under pressure. We could pick a trend line up here from up here, it looks pretty bearish to me. So for me in stock markets, like the S&P and the NASDAQ, I'm absolutely still be a seller of rallies. So until things sort themselves out, we've got a bit of support down here. Let's see what happens. So yeah, still really bearish. If you flip this over to an hourly for the S&P, you can just see, just the last week and a half or so. Look at this. There's just it just cannot hang on to its upward momentum, can it? So really interesting that these markets have been under pressure. I have been short the DAX this week. I think I am still short the DAX. So I do have a short on stock markets, just not on the NASDAQ or the S&P. We'll take a look at the DAX in a minute. There's the NASDAQ. I thought this was interesting. I put this in the WhatsApp chat this morning. I thought this was interesting that it had a little fiddle below yesterday, below that low from end of May, beginning of June. Is it a false break? Are we going to see a bounce back next week? Who knows? I have not read much of the news this week. I'm just wondering, is the commentary getting quite bearish about stock markets? If it was saying, oh my God, here comes the next crash, I definitely would start favouring a bounce back up for stocks, but it doesn't feel like we're there yet. But interesting anyway. Next week, I think, particularly this NASDAQ doing what it's doing here, I wouldn't buy it today. But perhaps if we see it stop falling next week, perhaps there is an opportunity there. But, these markets have been sliding since July. So what's that, 3 months now? Still under some pressure. Interesting afternoon. I think let's see what happens. But again, if we look on the hourlies, you can see on the NASDAQ, it's quite a bit of volatility during the day. And so, even on Tuesday of this week, quite a bit of volatility, but it just can't hang on to it. It has a little bit of a rally and then boom, just swan dives down again. So these markets still pretty weak, but maybe there's a bounce next week. I wouldn't be I'm not a buyer today at all. Let's see what happens. So that's the old NASDAQ and the S&P. I am short the DAX. I'm still short the DAX. It's an hourly trade for me. I'm short from Tuesday in here somewhere, about 14,850. So it went a bit against me for a couple of days. It's about 110 points up at the moment. Let's see what happens. But let's go back to the dailies on the DAX. I mean, the DAX is interesting, the German stock market. On the dailies, we're hurtling towards this big low from March. So the DAX is at a, 7-month low on the DAX. 14,450 was the low. Are we going to see a change in sentiment down here? Who knows? We've got, pretty oversold on the old RSI down there. Let's see what happens with that over the next weeks. So maybe next week ends up being a week of stock market bounce backs. Too early to call it, I think. I'm happy to stay short the DAX for now. But everything's been sliding for a while. Let's see. Are there any shocks next week that push these markets up? Let's see. But still weak as of today. FTSE doing its own thing a bit, but still weak again over the last couple of weeks or so. 73.09 on the FTSE, which is where it was in August, and also where it was in March, and also where it was in December. So the FTSE's been pretty sideways over the last 10 months. Heading towards the bottom of the range, are we going to see the FTSE bounce? Or are we going to see these lows get taken out? You can see just how powerful this old support was down at 72 on the FTSE, since March of this year. So 7-month lows coming up on the FTSE. Let's see what happens down here. So yeah. So that's that. Japan, the Nikkei. The Nikkei's a bit of a funny old one at the moment, but I think it's interesting because we've got the trend up since Jan of this year. Accelerates from March, and then we've not really had anything since June. So we had new highs for that trend hit in June, but over the last 4 months, nothing. It's just been drifting down. But the trend is still up, so I don't know. An aggressive trade here, again, not one for me for today, but maybe one for next week. Be a buyer if we thought it was going to bounce with a stop under these old lows around 30,270. So the stock market's quite interesting. For me, nothing too urgent today. And like I say, I've got the DAX trade on, so I'm short the DAX. So if it continues to fall today, I'm happy with that. But let's see what happens next week for stock markets. Could be interesting. So that's that. Dollar index. I am long the dollar index. I think it's a bit of a confusing market. If you look at it on the hourlies, it's been absolutely all over the place over the last month. It's pretty much back to where it was at the beginning of the month, but we've had big old swings, 150 point swings in both directions. I don't really know with the dollar index. I've got a trade on. I've got a tight stop on. Let's see what happens. I'd still be tempted to be a buyer of the dips of the dollar, but it's just a bit. You can see on the dailies here. It's just a bit chopper armor this month. So I don't really have a firm opinion on that one. I did buy Euro US dollar yesterday. I've just reminded myself. I bought it, the day before yesterday. I bought it, where did I buy it? I think I bought it here. So it's been against me and now it's with me and blah, 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 blah. Let's see. But if you look at Euro US dollar, I think it's interesting because the dailies, I'd say it's still pretty weak on the dailies. This is the daily chart. These are the lows from Jan. Interestingly, it did have a little fiddle through the Jan low in October, and we've bounced off that. So in hindsight, is that going to be a false break? I don't know. But I bought it on the hourlies because we did have a little recovery trend trying to choke higher. I don't know. Bit of a mixed picture. A bit like the US dollar at the moment. Obviously, Euro US dollar is the inverse of the dollar, effectively, isn't it? The dollar basket, pretty much, because so much of the dollar basket is the euro. But interesting, I thought, going into next week. I'm long. I'm still long. I had a 100-point stop on the trade. I'm quite happy to run it and see, does the market whack its way back up to 107? I did make some money on the way up. I bought it, I think, in here somewhere. Got out up here. So I basically did the same trade again. That was the trade I did on Wednesday, just buying the dip. So I think that's sort of interesting. Pound against the dollar. We do have those UK interest rates next week. Big trend has been down since July. Is it trying to make a base? Is it just having a rest before it falls off a cliff again? Place your bets. So we had a new low for that down move early October. Pretty sideways October since then. It has been, I'm profitable in October, but it has felt like hard work. And actually that's a good encapsulation of just, we've just been sideways for quite a few things I watch in October. Anyway, let's see what happens next week with the pound against the dollar. I would still be inclined to be a seller of strength. If we had a rally up to like 123, I'd still be inclined to go short. But let's see. Let's see what happens. Maybe that US interest rate decision and the non-farm payrolls puts some pressure on the US dollar and puts a bit of a rocket under the pound and the euro next week. I don't know. Let's wait and see. But I'm long the euro anyway, so I'm happy to see what happens next week on that one. I was going to go short I've missed some trades this week. I was going to go short the dollar this morning, not the dollar, the oil, and I missed it. Anyway, let's come back to that in a minute. But again, pretty side on the dailies. A volatile month, but a pretty sideways month again. I'd be inclined probably to still be a buyer in the bigger picture for oil. But you look at the shorter term picture for oil, and the trend has been down since last Friday. I was going to sell this thing today. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Didn't. So still under pressure, the oil price. But there's a lot of support coming in. $83 a barrel. 81.75. Maybe there's a bounce there next week. I don't know. Let's see what happens in that one. So I think that's sort of interesting. It was much more interesting 3 hours ago. But it's sort of an interesting one for next week, maybe, on oil, to see if these old lows hold. So I'd still be inclined to try to think the next big move is up in oil. But be under pressure this week. The trade I've missed, I could still get a chance, I suppose. Natural gas. The old nemesis of so many traders is back in an uptrend. So it was an absolute killer for a lot of people from the summer of last year, I think, trying to call the bottom in natural gas the same way they were trying to call the top on the way up. So natural gas topped out at $10 in August last year, eventually traded below 2 in the first few months of this year, and we had the breakout. Bang, bang, bang. I was waiting to buy the dip, put it in the WhatsApp group this week, completely took my eye off the ball to deal with some nonsense. Middle of the week, missed the bounce. I'd have bought it here. I'd have bought it at about 294. Maybe I get a chance again next week. But I think it's interesting. We've got this recovery going on in natural gas, but bang, ba bang, ba bang, off the old lows from May. So a really interesting market again, I think. So I'd absolutely buy the dip in natural gas because it's a volatile market. So it's a market I'd always like to have a reasonably wide stop on. But really interesting that so far at least, that still looks like a recovery to me. We had the breakout through, let's call it $3, the level that had held the market down on the way up. So we had that with the breakout out, the market sold off, and bang, we've gone up again. Interesting, I thought. So I'd still be a buyer of the dips on natural gas. So that's that. What else do we need to look at? Gold and silver. I find it really confusing at the moment. Price of gold. I didn't think it would be up here, trading as high as it is. You know, we had these highs from May. These were very briefly all-time highs, I think, in gold. Were they? No, they weren't. Maybe they were. Just about taking out July 20 highs, maybe. But you can see it never spends much time up around 2000, does it? So August 2020 up here, March 22, May 23, and we're still $100 or so below those highs. It looks like a short to me. Should we do that? Let's do that trade. We'll go short gold. I thought it was going to be a short earlier in the week or last week. It's sort of broken out the downtrend, but we've got these old barriers from up here. So I struggle, famous last words, it's had a little look at 2000 this week. I struggle to see gold really cracking on through 2000 and higher. So maybe that's the trade to do. We'll do it. We'll go short gold. So what was the high? So the high was 1997. It's very oversold on the old RSI for fans of the squiggles. Let's go short gold. So this is the account I use when I'm trading on the YouTube stuff. Real money, my money. You remember we did that Coca-Cola trade a couple of weeks. That's worked really well. So that's made a bit on there. Nvidia from last week is a bit underwater. The 4 other trades in there are doing okay. Blah, blah, blah. Let's go short gold. So gold. There we go. We'll sell that. So stop loss. What am I saying for stop loss? So 99. Should we say, let's say 2025. 2025. If it gets to 2025, I will admit that I am wrong. Let's just risk a couple of $100 or so. I've got to do 10. I don't have enough margin in my account quite to do that in this account. Let's have a quick look. Is there a smaller gold thing to trade? Is it a metal? It sounds pretty metal, doesn't it? Right, let's go. So we're going to trade, let me just put one in first of all. I said 2025 for the stop. Perfect. Trade 5 of those. There you go, selling 5 where it is now. Stop at 2025. Risk $220. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, do that. That's done. Okay. I think that's an interesting trade. So short gold, that's in there. There we go. Short gold. Just to see if it runs out of steam up here again. If it gets up to 2025, I'll be out. But for me, if it's going to top out anywhere, then this looks as good a place as any. Let's see what happens with that one. Silver, I was in silver on that account as well. Came out of that, I think, for something. Came out of that for 269 quid, whenever that was, 22nd of October. So that would have been, I don't even know, whatever the date is today. What's the date today? Oh, it was earlier this week. So came out of silver this week on that. I don't know with silver. It's another tricky one, isn't it? Well, it's a tricky one for me anyway. What would you say? You could say the trend is down on silver. I suppose like that. It's just all a bit scrappy, silver. So I'm not really, there's nothing really that jumps out for me on that silver trade. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know on silver. Right, what have we done? We've done the energies. We've done some currencies. We did the stock markets. The Bitcoin, of course, breakout. What have I been saying all year? The trend on Bitcoin is up. How many Bitcoin do I own? 0, of course. I thought it was interesting though. We had that ETF, I think, has been approved or something. We were talking about it last week, weren't we? And the only news I could find said it's going to be coming in a few months. Oh, hang on, but there's news today. Listing of planned Bitcoin ETF is not indicative of approval. So that seems a bit confusing, but whatever. Let's have a look at the price of Bitcoin. So we had the breakout through 32, whatever it was. I think I set an alert, didn't I? I set an alert last week at 32.7 or something. And I think it started going off on Monday of this week at about quarter to midnight. So I was lying in bed trying to switch off the bloody alert on Bitcoin. Anyway, so the Bitcoin breakout. I would buy the dips, you know. Maybe in the short term it's gone too far, perhaps. But I'd absolutely buy a dip in the Bitcoin from here. Interesting. You know, interesting move, interesting breakout, news driven, blah, blah, blah. We have had, you know, it's been holding up at these levels for about 3 days now. So let's see. I would think it's absolutely susceptible to a sell-off. The old buy the news, buy the rumor, sell the dip. Buy the rumor, sell the dip? What am I talking about? Buy the rumor, sell the news approach. So, you know, perhaps it's a bit overcooked up here. But I'll be a buyer of the dip in Bitcoin. So there you go. Bit of excitement in that one. And some other stuff, some other random bits and pieces that I can remember from putting in the WhatsApp group this morning. Cocoa, another market I have watched go up all year. Never actually got around to buying it. So breakout on cocoa. Again, continues today. Multi-year highs for the price of cocoa. Interesting market. Orange juice, we've looked at that before. Another great trend in orange juice. Going back to July 22 and continues, accelerated this year from July 23 this year. What else did I think was interesting? Cotton I thought was interesting because it was faffing around on the trend line. There you go. So it's sort of having a little go at trying to hold on to the trend. So some non-financial markets I thought were a bit of an interesting mix in there as well. So there you go. So for next week, what do we think? Well, what I think is stock markets might be interesting because they're so weak. What's going to happen? Let's see. I think that's interesting. Euro, I'm in the trade anyway, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what happens next week. I'll be quite happy if that continues to go up. Gold, I think I really can't see it through $2,000 an ounce, but what do I know? Let's see what happens next week with that. And all that news, you know, we've got all that news from whenever it is. Tuesday of next week. Really busy week. So perhaps the first half of the week is a little bit markets marking time, waiting for this Wednesday interest rate decision. And then perhaps we have a bit of a crazy 3 days or 2.5 days once the rate decision comes out. Thursday, Friday then, and then the payrolls. So let's see what happens. So don't forget, if you want to get invited to the secret webinar, the exclusive webinar, send me an email, first of all. It's going to happen a week next Thursday. Send me an email, dj@davidjonestrading.co.uk. If you can't make it, send me an email anyway, because there'll be a recording available, and the same rules will apply for having the recording of the email. So send that through to me if you'd like to attend that. Everybody who attended live, the last live webinar thing I did, will get an invitation anyway. And again, will be allowed to attend if they open an account. That's it. It's pretty straightforward, isn't it? So send me an email. Right, let's take a look at some of the stuff you want looking at. What do we think of ON? ON, Semiconductor Corporation. I remember that. You sent me an email on that yesterday, didn't you? I mean, the trend is up, isn't it? The trend is up. It's been pretty weak. But if you were a buyer based off that trend, or if I was a buyer based off that trend, I would probably be a bit more patient. The closest I'd have my stop is below 77. So that's the symbol ON, Semiconductor Corporation, whoever they are. So I would say that UAL, United Airlines. I thought that was going to be pretty sideways. It's pretty sideways, and it's coming near the bottom of the range, isn't it? It's still weak. I mean, the stock price has slid $24. What's that? About 40% since those highs. It's interesting. It's an interesting one to watch. I'd be in no hurry to do anything because it's still weak, but it is interesting down here. Apple, I was talking about this one this morning actually. Apple, I would be inclined to be a seller of the rally in Apple, to be honest, because I think we do have this downtrend, don't we, in US stock markets since the summer. We did have an uptrend in Apple. That has gone, blah, blah, blah. This is where we are. So I would sell a rally in Apple. So I wouldn't be in a hurry to buy it just yet. And if I had to do anything, I'd be looking to sell the rally. So there you go. Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. Let's have a look at that. It's good to have a look at one where we take the US dollar out of the equation. Look at that. That's interesting, isn't it? That's almost like if you were reading a textbook on technical analysis and the break of the trend line, that is a textbook example, isn't it? So Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. We had been in this downtrend since Jan. So all this year, been in a downtrend. Come back to the old support, no less, from October last year. And we've broken out. So for me, what I would do, I never buy the first break of a trend line. So I would go short, actually. Controversial opinion. So I'd go short that, but not yet because it's too strong. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens if it sells off and does it hold. So I think that's a really interesting market. Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. So I'd be tempted to be, short-term trade would be short, thinking the market's overshot a little bit. Medium-term trade, let's see what happens when it dips. Do we buy the dip? But interesting market, that one. Stocks aren't just sliding. On the weekly, they all seem to be setting themselves up for some big falls. Scary stuff. It is Halloween, Henry. It's that time of year. So let's have a look at Amazon on the weekly. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Let's see. Let's see what happens. As usual, is my attitude to it. Is there any significance that the daily candles are touching the 200-day moving average on the Nasdaq? Will the 200-day moving average act as support? I have got no idea. I never look at moving averages. I don't care about them. Again, if someone makes money using moving averages, making money is the name of the game. But let's have a look on the moving average. Moving average on the Nasdaq. Don't even know how to change that. Settings. 200-day. 200-day moving average. Is that a 200-day moving average? Oh, I don't know. No, it doesn't look right at all. Hang on a second. Settings. 20. 200-day moving average. Okay. It's not changing. This is why I hate moving averages. Why is that not changing? Right, I have now officially run out of patience trying to put a moving average on this chart. I don't know. Maybe it is. For some people, the 200-day moving average will be important. Not important for me. But here we go. Here we go. Hold on a second. Moving average simple. Yeah, how do I change it? Length. I'm changing the wrong thing, aren't I? 200. There we go. 200-day moving average. Okay. Oh, there you go. So it's coming up to it now. Yeah, for some people that would be important. I'd have to say it did do a good job on the way down. It was resistance on the way up. Rallied up here, turned around. Interesting. And on the way, it was a long way away from the moving average in that post-COVID run higher. But for some people that'll be important. The 200-day moving average. Not for me, obviously. But yeah, interesting to watch it. Right. Invesco Agriculture ETF. Invesco Agriculture ETF, DB Agricultural Fund. Let me get rid of this moving average now because I don't want to see it on all my charts. Invesco, so the agri funds. So what do you think about that then? I don't know. I would probably be a buyer rather than a seller. We do have the old resistance, don't we, from up here at $23. I'm guessing that is. It has been chugging its way higher. I'm guessing that's because some of the strength we've seen in some of the agricultural commodities. That we looked at cocoa and orange juice and all that, didn't we? So I'd buy it. I don't know if I'd buy it now though. It's trading at 22 now. 23 was resistance back in May 2022, which would have been the post-Ukraine invasion highs. It's a great trend though over time, isn't it? Look at that. If you put all your money in the agri doodah, June 2020, you'd be up 50%. That's not bad though. 50% is all right. Yeah, let's see. Let's see what happens up here. I'd buy the dip. If we had a dip down to 21, I'd buy it. Don't know if I'd buy it now at 22. So let's see. Let's see what happens with that. Okay. The Russell looks like it's on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Oh, I love this. Bit of drama in the live stream. The Russell, so the smaller cap. Yeah, I thought I do look at this maybe once a week, and I did wonder what was going to go on down here, down at these levels, and here we are. So we're back to the lows from June, October, and here we are again. So around about 1640, like you say, major breakdown coming. What's that called in technical analysis land? Is it like a continuation flag? It's not a flag, is it? Because it's got to be slanting. Whatever it's called. I'm sure there's a silly technical analysis name for that. How do I stop my thing flashing up? Oh, I can't figure it out. But yeah, if that level goes on the on the Russell, that does suggest a big sell-off. I mean, for me, if that level went, some people would just multiply out the size of that channel. So that channel is about 400 points high. So I slide to 1244 down to here, which is completely doable. Again, post-COVID lows, May 2020 lows. But yeah, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't look healthy. And we looked at the FTSE 250 the other week, didn't we? Wherever that was, can't even remember. FTSE 250, and that looked a bit sickly as well. So these smaller caps do not look too clever. I can't find it as usual, and as usual, I'm too impatient to look for it. Oh, there we go. It looked like that. I think that's a FTSE 250 ETF. So the UK version of that. Blah, blah, blah. There you go. What do we do? Russell, Nova Nordic. Nova Nordic. It's not coming up for me. I don't know what that is. Is it all one word, maybe? Nova Nordic? No. So I don't know what that is, sorry. But I can't get it. Nova Empire, no. And Euro Aussie. So Euro Aussie dollar, Euro AUD. So look at that one. It's hugging that trend line, isn't it? I would buy the dip on that. The only question is, how deep does the dip go? If I was a buyer, I'd rather have my stop below 162.30. So it looks like a buy the dip to me, but I wouldn't. Actually, on the hourlies, it looks more positive, doesn't it? I mean, a more aggressive trade on the hourlies, be a buyer now, 166.47, and I would probably have a stop the other side of 165.30. So I have a 120 point stop and see if the thing can rally a couple of hundred points up to the highs from earlier in the week. I should spend more time looking at the non-dollar markets, particularly at the moment, because it's quite confusing, I think, for me anyway, the dollar markets, the ones with the dollar in at the moment, because the dollar is a bit all over the place. So these markets, what's euro dollar doing? That's still going. Okay, JDE, no idea what JDE is. JDE Peets.nv. Is that the right one? Or is it a completely different company? Let's have a quick scroll down. It's the only JDE coming up by the looks of it. That does not look right at all. No idea. If you want, can you give me a bit more information before we finish? I'll have a look at that. JDE Peets NV. No idea what it is. EQX, Equinox Gold. So I'm guessing, is this some sort of, is it a gold miner or a gold tracker? It's a bit boring, isn't it? It looks boring to me, that one. If you look on the dailies, it's interesting, isn't it? Whatever they do, if the gold price is high, let me have a look, because I'm curious. Why aren't this lot doing well? Equinox Gold, what is it? Equinox Gold Core. The premier America's gold producer. 7 gold mines in the Americas. Interesting that it's not doing very well though, considering the price of gold is doing well. Anyway, whatever, let's take a look. You know, would you say, going back to 2020, the trend is still down? I probably would. So I would not be getting too excited about that. It's absolutely being strong in the short term, but I would look to sell the rally for me in that one. So it's not too exciting for me. And I would question, why is it doing so badly when the price of gold has been doing okay? So for me, not too much interest. If I absolutely had to be a buyer, I'd be a buyer and I'd put my stop under $4. But it's not one that would appeal to me too much, the old Equinox Gold. Barrick Gold, they're all coming in today. Barrick Gold. Oh, it's always also a bit of a disappointment, isn't it? You'd be much better off holding the physical than holding one of the gold miners. Barrick is a massive gold miner, isn't it? I think it's part of the S&P, isn't it? I mean, for me, trend's still down. All a bit boring this year. I'd be inclined to sell short probably, with a stop above $18 would be my initial gut reaction on that one. So not too exciting, the old Barrick Gold. The ticker for Novo Nordisk is NVO. Thanks for that, NVO. It's Novo. You see, you told me it was Nova. It's Novo Nordisk. All right, Novo Nordisk. What do they do? Health technology, pharmaceuticals, and doodars. I mean, I would buy the dip. That's done great, isn't it? Where's that gone from? So a year ago, they were about $52, and they're $94 today. So for me, trend is up. I would buy the dip. Where would my stop go? The closest I would put my stop would probably be at 84. I'd be a bit patient, but interesting chart. I mean, these gaps are a bit vicious, aren't they? Presumably that's on earnings. What was their earnings like? Earnings, they said they were actually negative, and they still went up. The wonder of financial markets. So yeah, buy the dip for me. Stop at 84 would be the closest I have to stop on that one. Peet's Coffee. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know. It's not for some reason it's not coming up very well. Or the real thing isn't coming up. Peet's Coffee. Is that it? JDE Peet's. Am I on the right one? Or are we looking at completely different things? Hang on a second. JDE Peet's. Oh yeah, Jacob Dow's Egg Butts, the beverage company. Wow, there you go. Market cap €7 billion. Oh, that's 2021. It looks a bit of a dog. What do you reckon? To me, it looks a bit. Yeah, I mean, for me, the trend is still down. Something like that. It's maybe interesting, maybe a bottom fisher doodah thing. If you thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity. 24 is that €24? Maybe, if you thought, well, they're going to turn it round. They're not going to run this coffee company into the ground. It's going to have this massive resurgence. So maybe it's interesting with a stop under 24, but it's not one that would be too exciting for me. But let's see. Let's come back to it over the next couple of weeks and see if anything's turned around. PBR.A. Petro Brasilia Petrobras. Okay. What do you think? It's interesting. This. I mean, we're at the trend has been up. Since last year, we're at the top of the range. So it's like make your mind up time. Are we going to get a breakout through, let's call it $16? Or is it going to, once again, as it has done for the last 4.5 years, prove to be the top for this one? Let's see. Let's see what happens. I don't know. I would wait and see, personally. So if I wasn't in it, I'd wait and see if it broke 16 and see what happens. So yeah, let's see. So that's it, I think, for this week. So like I say, next week, the stuff to watch for me, stock markets, lots happening next week. What's going to happen with these markets? Are they going to break down even further? Is the price of gold going to top out? I guess I'm slightly underwater on that trade at the moment in gold, down $20. Let's see how that turns out. Euro, I'm interested in the euro because I'm in the trade anyway. Does that get a bit of a move on again next week? So it's a big week next week with these interest rate decisions. So we'll see. And like I say, there's the webinar a week on Thursday. Drop me an email if you want to attend. It will be well worth attending. If you enjoyed the last one, you should enjoy this one as well. If you didn't see the recording of the last one, send me an email and I'll send you a link out. Otherwise, we're done, aren't we? So you can find out more information about the courses and stuff on the website. We'll do it all again next Friday. See what's going on after the US interest rate decision, after the non-farm payrolls, after all that stuff. But until then, good luck with your trading and see you in a week's time.